Hello, everybody, and welcome to Theory Underground. So great to have you all here today. What you're about to listen to is from a week or something ago. It's when Anne and I read James Robb of The Worker at Large, a really awesome piece that he wrote called The Anatomy of a Witch Hunt. This is about Nina Power. Generally speaking, I don't stick my neck out and say, hey, this shitstorm people I know are jumping on is wrong. People should stop that. But every once in a while, if you don't take a principled stand on the internet, you surround yourself with a bunch of cowards. That's what happens. And the world is run by cowards or people who capitulate to them. And that's too bad. And I get why people have to do that. I get why people seem spineless. There's a habitus that comes from certain fields, but we're in the underground. And we don't got to do that. So we're going to do this. We're proud to stand with Nina, who's being unfairly tarnished. People can say she's not left. They can say she's conservative. They can say all kinds of things about her. They can even say truthful things, like she researches the manosphere and she was interested or is interested in these neo-reactionary tendencies on the internet as a researcher, as a philosopher, as a political theorist, as a feminist. Yes, that's all true. They can also say she has a position that 99% of humanity has had throughout all history when it comes to what makes a man or a woman a man or a woman. She's also a loving person who's open-minded and welcoming of others who aren't crazy. So I just want to say we really appreciate her, and we're doing this. So let's get to it. What are we about to do?
We are about to read an article, blog post about the Nina Power cancellation situation in preparation for the conversation that we are going to have with her tomorrow, which is also a pre-record for the Epic Marathon live stream on Wednesday. And I have not read this article yet. Dave has. I don't know if you've read all of it. He said it's really good take on the whole situation, which we don't even have to summarize the situation because I'm assuming this article is going to say it all and then we can add our interjections. But I think it's important to kind of paint the picture of what's going on and make our principled stance very clear going into this conversation with Nina.
Yeah, I guess I'll just say I did write a post on Substack about the situation, but it wasn't a forensic breakdown of the situation. I didn't go into the kinds of details that required the sleuthing that this author did do. I took up a position that didn't require much research. I was going off the screenshots that everybody was judging and retweeting while canceling her. And I said, no, people were acting like the screenshots were indisputable proof that she was a Nazi. And I was like, those are screenshots of people joking from 6 years ago. And it's very obviously two people joking in a WhatsApp. And so anybody who takes a joke like that and then gives it the least charitable take and doesn't kind of try to understand well, what would make that funny? To me, that's a big red flag. And so I went ahead and wrote the first half of the article just about, I'm sorry, I don't want to have to explain a joke, but I'm going to, the conditions of possibility for that kind of joking to be funny, which is to say, when everybody is always calling you something that you're not, and you and your buddy, you've been cut off from a lot of like people who are just like, they don't know. And so they just kind of like distance themselves and stuff like that. And so it's persecution. It's literally persecution. You're being persecuted by people in power. And so what do? You make jokes. And so of course, like if everyone's calling you something that you're not, then calling yourself the thing, being like, oh, what if it's true? That's funny.
Or just saying something that the other side is gonna misconstrue and then go, haha, I'm such a Nazi.
Yeah. Yeah, which is what it was. And so like the people who were like, I don't see the joke. I don't see how this could be a joke. It's just like, okay. So I'll make sure
off of the internet.
I'll make sure not to take you too seriously in the future when you're offering your judgment. I think judgment is something that you can refine, and it's something you can be proud to offer your judgment. You can stand behind it because to the best of your knowledge, when you judge something, like you mean it. And you practice like the art of intellectual integrity. And then there's people who they ride on their authority, their accumulated clout, and they make everything into some kind of a socialite game, and I don't like that. And then the last half of that article that I wrote for Substack, the last half is a much more dangerous half, where I basically was like, also, if she was straight up flirting with Nazism like 6 years ago, that's just part of the philosophical journey. If you live in a world where every time you have a conversation, the conversation ends or the thinking ends whenever it broaches anything related to left versus right, and then people try to say, oh, well, that's just Nazi things. That's just Nazi things. Oh, that's Hitler. Hitler's the most evil thing ever. And it's like, cool, but why? And do you know? I mean, have you read him? I mean, have you thought about it? Are you having everyone else do your thinking for you? Have you ever thought it through for yourself? And if you could just go, well, 6 million Jews killed, I don't need to think about that. Great, but you're not going to be like a serious political theorist, all right? Real political theorists are profoundly taken with this situation, trying to understand it, not just as a instance of mass delusion or the mobs getting swept away by populists or whatever, which is something some people do. Some people try to act like it's just insanity. But I like how Emmanuel Levinas, probably the most profound Jewish survivor of the Holocaust. People usually say it's the man's search for meaning guy. No, I think it's Levinas is the most profound survivor of the Holocaust, and that his totality infinity, as well as his entire life's project, is taking it seriously, but it's not taking it seriously in this cheap way. And in fact, he takes it so seriously that he says, he's aware part of what worked for both Mussolini and Hitler is that they're taking a bunch of tried and true things and bundling them together. Well, what's tried and true? It's not just convenient. It's not just ideology. There's also sometimes a there, sometimes a kernel of truth. And so he, in totality infinity, in his development and unfolding of a theory of subjectivity and what it means to be a human, is starting with a lot of those givens that fascism starts with, and then he unfolds them further, like all good immanent critique is supposed to do. But you wouldn't know that if you just read Derrida and Levinas and Foucault, and you stay in the safe lane, and you never get out there and read Carl Schmitt and other, dangerous, banned books. So, we don't tolerate that. The internet's not a place for cowardice. It's a place for people to learn how to have conversations that you wouldn't get to have if you went to the supermarket down the street, right? The internet is a place where you can find people who want to have courageous conversations. Nina Power has been doing that for a long time. It only recently started getting her in trouble because activism only really got this crazy pretty recently. And because she has an obviously functional intellect, people get really angry that she is using it to speak her mind instead of just towing the line. And I don't know that I agree with her on everything, but I don't disagree with her in the main spiritual thrust of her work. Right? I don't disagree with her with the major things that I think that she is doing or that she's accomplished. And so, but it doesn't even matter. That's not even the point. The point is like she says in the piece that she submitted to Underground Theory, people should talk. And so that's the preface, I think. We met her in London just in June. It was great. We did an event with her. It's already posted on the channel. Yeah? You want to get going?
And we got a cool interview with her walking through the streets of London. And yeah,
True.
she's been very kind to us, very generous with her time. We love talking to her, having conversations, seeing where her thought goes. And so yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what this person has to say about it all.
Yeah, this is by James Robb, and it was published on August 8th, 2024. So only like a week ago. Helen Rollins shared it to me and said it was probably the best thing so far on this whole situation. And I think it's true. I think it's amazing. I think it's really, really good. From what I read enough of it to go, all right, I want to do this. So there will be some stuff that we get to where it's like a fresh reaction from me, all of it from Anne. You want to take it away?
Now, before we begin, Ryan needs something, probably food or to go outside. He's meowing like crazy. Give me 1 second.
Womp, womp, womp. There's a kitty cat. He's a precious little boy. He's covered in fur. And he's kind of a teenager. My theory is that all cats are teenagers. All dogs are toddlers through the age of 7. And yeah, it's dogs and cats evolved alongside humans to help humans learn how to raise children. And cats, if you can't learn how to have a good relationship with a cat, you'll never have a good relationship with a teenager. And people who think that dogs know how to love, but the cats don't know how to love, don't understand that there is a way to love a child versus a way to love a person who is in that awkward in-between stage. That awkward trying to figure it out phase.
I have to hold this kitty so he doesn't eat Ryan's bits like he did half an hour ago.
Yeah, we have. We can't hear him. Don't worry. Zoom mutes it all out. We don't hear anything. So, yeah, we don't hear his meowing. But that's our new kitty. He doesn't have a name yet. We were going to call him Rodin. What is it? Rodin Rononovich Raskolnikov. Yeah. We're going to call him that, or Thomas Aquinas, or Soren Kierkegaard, but we're not sure yet. All right, that's enough. That's enough.
Feeling it out. Let's do it. The kitties are taken care of for now. Right. Okay. Anatomy of a Witch Hunt. A friend recently posted the following thread on X/Twitter. Nina Power caused outrage in NZ, New Zealand, with the 2021 People of Color exhibition that stole Maori art and put it next to Nazi symbols. Now a UK court has found that Power is a Nazi who secretly ran this Twitter account and harassed a Jewish artist. Power's career is in ruins. The court judgment has bankrupted Power and she's lost her job at Compact Mag. She has written in recent years for The Telegraph and Spectator, but it's hard to see that continuing. I suspect Power may even be on the radar of UK and US police.
Oh my God. I love how the person's just saying, I suspect. It's just like, oh yeah? I suspect you're a rapist. Let's keep reading.
And then this is, I think, the last paragraph of the thread, which they posted a screenshot of. They said, documents obtained by the court show Power and her close collaborator, D.C. Miller, talking about meeting and working with Heathcliff, a code name for Jack Stokoe. Power wrote secretly to Stokoe's openly Nazi rag, Parallax Optics. Stokoe directly inspired a terrorist. Oh no, this is still the thread. In 2021, Lyndon McLeod killed 5 in Denver. He quoted Stokoe to justify his act, and the latter was investigated by UK police, and yet Power has chosen to put herself in the same frame as one of the UK's most notorious Nazis. She used her secret account to chat to Sacco on Twitter.
Okay, so that, and I just want to say, like, some of those are pretty, I mean, those are big claims. Like, those actually, some of that is a really big deal. I mean, it sounds really bad. And a lot of people were doing this definitive hot take, closed case kind of posting when it came to this. And, yeah, whenever the shitstorm is going and every opportunistic or spineless loser is either jumping on the bandwagon or kind of like, not speaking up about like things that are obviously deranged or like the pathologically unhinged like response that obviously outweighs the claims being made in the first place or the accusations being made in the first place. Whenever that's happening, this is the kind of posting that people make. And it's always like, whoa, that sounds really bad. That sounds terrible, right? Well, you got to give it sometimes a while before anybody comes along and does like an article that is this measured and serious. And we're going to dramatize it a little bit, but that's us. James Robb he's writing this in a pretty serious way. He's not going to make fun of this person. He's going to engage with it all very thoughtfully.
Yes, but I like to read tweets like that in that voice. All
tweets should be read in that voice. And so the image is, I think this image is of either, what is this? Is this the neo-Nazi that killed people in Denver?
Probably this Lyndon McLeod guy, yeah.
Yeah, so, it's, scary looking dude. Who knows? I don't really know much, but it's probably bad. So anyway, let's keep going.
Okay. So back to the author of this piece. Oh, you're going to read.
Then the invitation to me to join in. So the person who was tweeting all of that Anne was reading, atted Rob, saying, James Robb NZ, I hope you'll let me off for criticizing Power now, comrade. My response was, criticism is fine, but what you are doing here is not criticism. You are joining a witch hunt, spreading false and slanderous allegations without evidence. For starters, the court did not find that she is a Nazi and dismissed the claim of harassment. So the two major claims this person was writing on, the court actually said, no, that's not the case. So I was already familiar with the campaign to slander the UK-based philosopher and art critic Nina Power as a Nazi. I first wrote about a witch hunt which overwhelmed an Auckland art exhibit back in November 2020, and Nina Power, who had written an introductory essay for the exhibition, was a central target of this reactionary campaign. Now the witch hunt has suddenly boiled up again.
The occasion for this new eruption and Nina Power's having been declared bankrupt after losing a court case. The occasion for this new eruption is Nina Power's having been declared bankrupt after losing a court case for libel. In 2020, Power's friend, the artist Daniel Miller, began a libel case against another artist, Luke Turner, who had repeatedly accused him and Power of being anti-Semitic and being Nazis, resulting in their cancellation, losing speaking, exhibition, and publication opportunities, as well as assaults and death threats being made against them. Turner was apparently reacting to criticisms and ridicule of his art 2017 installation called He Will Not Divide Us, a response to the election of Donald Trump. Nina Power joined the libel case a short time later. Turner then made a counterclaim of harassment against Power and Miller, and refused all attempts by Power and Miller to negotiate a mediated settlement. When the case came to court in October 2023, both the libel claim brought by Power and Miller and Turner's harassment counterclaim were dismissed. Since they had initiated the case, legal costs were awarded against Power and Miller, resulting in their bankruptcy. Power also resigned from her job as senior editor on Compact magazine in the face of mob pressure.
And of course,
For-
because I had taken a big stand for Nina when this was happening, several people start messaging me, oh my God, she resigned. See? And they were acting like that was proof. Tut was one of those people. He was like, oh, see? And I was like, this is still not proof of anything. Oh my God. There were people who were using like the fact that she was bankrupt as like the ultimate own. They were also like, oh, she'll never come back from that. She's bankrupt. And then there were people acting like the fact that she didn't win, or that she and Daniel didn't win their suit. Um, they were just like, oh, see? And it's like, yeah, but what are the actual conclusions reached by the court? How about you look at that first before spreading a bunch of lies? And also, when you don't really own anything, bankruptcy doesn't really do anything. Some people, they really don't get it, but also, like, there's nothing more legalistic than taking bankruptcy and the loss of a suit as like indicative of anything outside of more context and information. So tells you a lot more about the people who are jumping on this bandwagon than it does about the actual situation, in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay. I'll read the first one, and then you can start up. First, let's note the following features of this series of X/tweets which indicate a witch hunt at work. 1. The chain of guilt by association. Power wrote for Stakho, used a secret account to chat to Stakho. Stakho inspired a terrorist who quoted Stakho to justify his killing spree. Thus, in the space of 3 tweets, Nina Power is linked to a terrorist killing spree in which 5 people died, in which she had absolutely no connection.
2. The liberal use of the descriptors such as notorious Nazis, openly Nazi, etc., in relation to various websites and individuals, as if all this is established fact, in order to bolster these chains of guilt by association. After all, who but another Nazi would associate in any way with an individual who is a notorious Nazi? But these designations are not established fact. They are epithets, contested assertions, and accusations. The accusations against Miller and Power are thus built not on fact, but on other accusations. So this is what I like about this person's ability to like I said, it's forensic, but it's analytically breaking this shit down. Yeah. 3. The dark hints of secret Twitter accounts, secret conversations, concealed opinions, which are only expressed anonymously, a kind of political double life. A person's nickname becomes a code name in this fevered imagining. They need to prove that Nina Power and Daniel Miller are secret Nazis because nothing in their public life and work, nor anything in their published and freely available writings indicates anything remotely fascistic or admiring of Nazis. The anti-communist witch hunters of the 1950s likewise had to concoct fanciful stories of secret liaisons and secret rendezvous in order to frame people whose activities and beliefs were widely known and sharply at odds with the crimes with which they were being charged. The persecution of Alger Hiss is an example. In his case, it included the ludicrous claim that he had passed some rolls of film to a Soviet agent by concealing them in a hollowed-out pumpkin. The contents of the films were so top secret they could not be revealed in court. Which is just, standard U.S. government deep state bullshit, Oh, they've got the weapons of mass destruction. Look at this bag of powder. See? Oh, that case settled. Case closed. It's a settled matter. Oh yeah, that's the evidence. The people with authorities waved something at us. It's done. Let's keep going. We know the truth now. Oh, okay, yeah. Remind me not to trust you next time you say anything. Interestingly, Hiss also attempted to defend himself by suing his accuser for libel, lost the case because of the pressure of the witch hunt, after which the persecution intensified. And then I'll read this last one. 4. The clear departure from fact in several places. Some of these are easy to check, as in a UK court has found that Power is a Nazi, obviously wrong. So, okay, it's like that person could almost be sued for libel right there. The only problem is that on the internet, stuff like that is actually impossible to actually do anything about. But this is not just misinformation. It's completely wrong. There's nothing true about that. The court case did not find Power to be a Nazi. The court did not make any such finding, and harassed a Jewish artist. The court rejected Turner's claim of harassment. It found only that there had been a very unpleasant online exchange on Twitter, commonly known as a flaming war. And then before we move on, I just want to say...
Never heard that term before.
I think it's usually called a flame war, but, a flaming war, it's the same thing.
I've never heard flame war either.
Yeah, it's a cyclone of people going back and forth, and, usually it's not pretty. You could also call it a dumpster fire, but let's see. If we go back up, he said, let's note the following features of this series of X tweets which indicate a witch hunt at work. Let's summarize each one in one sentence. I'll let you do it if you want. But basically, the first one...
Yeah, so guilt by association, accusations not really based in fact, the accusation of some secret life outside of everything that they say and do publicly. And then number 4, the fact that there were straight up lies or untruths about the court case. So that's what this person who the Twitter thread is coming from, as well as just other people were just jumping on top of saying in their tweets. And so the first tweet included a screenshot of a Twitter account called Radfem Hitler, whose handle is @TurfDavidIck or Ike, with a message praising the conspiracist David Icke. Do you know if it's Icke or Ike?
Let's go with Ike. I think it might be Ike.
Yeah. Claiming that the court found...
He's like... It's like if you got into conspiracy theories, but you had any functioning brain cells, you probably went down the rabbit hole up until you got to David Icke, and then you listened to him talk for more than 5 minutes, and you were like, I have to do something.
More.
I have to do something else with my life. Yeah.
Nice.
He's a weirdo. Yeah. And he's just kind of, I mean, he's not believable. Like he clearly doesn't have intellectual integrity. Like I don't get that impression that he has it at all. So anyway.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So the first tweet included a screenshot of a Twitter account called Radfem Hitler, whose handle is @TurfDavidIcke, with a message praising the conspiracist David Icke, claiming that the court found that Nina Power ran this account. In fact, the account has nothing to do with Power and was never mentioned in the court case. Other falsehoods may not be so easy to check. Oh, there's more points.
Oh shit, there's more points
This is
below.
just under number 4.
Shit.
Other falsehoods may not be so easy to check, such as the emotion-charged claim that the Auckland exhibition stole Maori art. It was an exhibition of miniature flags, all produced by the artists themselves. Not one was stolen. A flag, by definition, is not a piece of copyrighted art, even on the rare occasions where an individual designer can be identified. People may object to the way a flag is used, or object to another person using it, but such objections do not make the use or misuse of the flag stealing art. Some Maori objected to the use of Maori flags in the exhibition, while others, such as Tame Iti, who designed one of the flags, were very supportive. The common thread of all of this, the chains of guilt by association, the fabrications, the dark suggestions of guilty secrecy and being on the radar of the police, the labeling of people as Nazis, the talk of stealing Maori art, is sensationalism and emotionalism. The purpose is to whip up feelings of righteous outrage. And 6, this outrage and hatred is directed not against the political power or its representatives, not against the oppressive institutions of capitalist society or their figureheads, but against true private persons, two people who like to discuss art, literature, and ideas, write articles, publish books, speak in debates and forums, and earn a living along the way. The goal is to wreck their lives, cut off any work or publishing opportunities to them, bankrupt them, destroy them morally, drive them to suicide, ruin them. Power's career is in ruins, my friend tweets with triumphal glee. Yeah, that's like that last one is just like, this is just all, it's internet bullying is what it is. Like, it's grown adults bullying someone on the internet. It's one thing to say, like, I think this person's a Nazi, okay, whatever. But to like, oh, these accusations, oh look, see, oh look, I'm so appalled. Like, you're joining on this train, like, you're doing it to make everyone aware so that no one associates with them, which will XYZ lead to all of these things, could lead to all of these things. If someone was in a really bad spot, or if this really affected them, or if this made them lose their job and lose all their friends and like lose everything, it really could lead someone to like a very, very deep, dark place, this type of cancellation. And luckily Nina's coming out like stronger than ever, like, haha, been there, done that. They can't take my books. So
Well, and
anyway.
she's got more support than she's ever had. And, it might not be, for the most part, support that comes from the left. I'm not really aware of anyone on my left radar who said anything about how ridiculous all of this was. Except when I put out my tweet the other day, or actually, was that even today? It might have been today. I said something like, I shared this article and I said, basically, I said something along the lines of all the people who thought that this was a closed deal, that she was done for, that she was for sure a Nazi, that she was gone. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong, and you're not going to be able to come back too easily from this unless you just straight up like admit that you were wrong. Doug retweeted that, Doug Lane. So, that's a leftist. One leftist came through. Good job. Also Swole. I guess he still counts. I think he still counts. Anyway, let's keep going. Oh, before we keep going, anybody who wants to go deeper into this phenomenon of the cry bully should read Recovering Anarchist on Substack. Kier wrote an article called How to Spot a Cry Bully, and it's really freaking good. I think it's something that Ann and I could definitely come back and read later. We'd have a lot of fun with it for sure. But anyway, yeah, that's what it amounts to. At the end of that article, Kier talks about here's all the signs of like things to look for, and it's like, okay, what are some of the things? The claims they make are extremely vague and employ inflammatory language to disguise the lack of substance. If the claims are specific, they are so incredibly egregious that people will say, who would lie about such a thing? Their claims are completely out of character for the accused person or organization. They often refuse to communicate directly with the accused or a neutral third party. They reject any apology or insincere, and any practical solution offered is somehow lacking. They do not provide the accused with any reasonable way to resolve the situation. It seems they will only be happy if the organization is shuttered or the individual is shunned. Their social life is a revolving door, as their relationships are volatile, unstable, and short-lived. They may have a habit of requesting financial support in tandem with the accusations they make. And finally, they have a pattern of making public accusations or executing whisper campaigns against people/organizations with whom they have disagreement and which could have been resolved interpersonally. This checks all of those, I'm pretty sure. And one of the things that Kier says in this is, by the way, sometimes a real victim might actually, a couple of these things. They might be doing a couple of these things. But a person who's doing all of these things, that's how you know you're dealing with a cry bully, okay?
Your turn.
Yeah. When I challenged my friend, his response was to double down on the claims and add more false claims, more anonymous accounts, more posts on Nazi websites, more people slandered as Nazis. The light-minded disregard of facts is also characteristic of a witch hunt. When one claim is shown to be false, there is no retraction or acknowledgement of error. Yep, I haven't seen anybody do any retractions or acknowledgement of error, even though we've already pointed out he has within this article a couple. On the contrary, the accusers blithely move on to other equally false claims. Quote, her libel failed precisely because overwhelming evidence was found of the truth of Turner's claim she was a Nazi. The judge said she and her openly Nazi partner ran a harassment campaign against Turner with a whiff of anti-Semitism. Hence, she was ordered to pay Turner's costs. The only part of this tweet that is true is that the court ruling mentioned a whiff of anti-Semitism in describing the flaming war. The court did not... Okay, and by the way, I can never take this shit seriously anymore because it's anti-Semitic to be critical of Israel's policy against Palestine. It's anti-Semitic to talk about banks. It's anti-Semitic to talk about the deep state. It's anti-Semitic to act like anyone in power has any power at all. Okay? And that's insane. That's absolutely stupid. It's ridiculous because people are saying, oh, well, we know what they really mean when they talk this way. They mean the Jews. And it's like, no, I mean what I fucking said. Okay? This is how ContraPoint's dog whistle spotting video led everybody into the inability to think. Like they get so caught up in trying to, oh, well, a person who says that must believe this. Now I'm going to go just look with binoculars for anybody saying that. And it is like very much like the hall monitor effect. Anyway, the court did not rule on the truth or otherwise of Turner's claim that she is a Nazi. Miller's and Power's libel claim was dismissed before the court even considered that question. It also rejected Turner's counterclaim of harassment by Power and Miller. The reason they and Daniel Miller were ordered to pay 80% of Turner's costs was simply because they brought the libel claim, and it was dismissed. The court's ruling can be read in full here. And I think I've read the ruling. I have read at least a sizable chunk of it. Then he added, apart from you, I have, this is the author's friend. Apart from you, I haven't seen anyone defending Power except members of her Nazi milieu. Yeah, someone did tweet that a list of creator accounts that are supposedly esoteric Hitlerists, and Theory Underground was one of them. But I don't think that the person communicating with the author here could have possibly meant us, because I genuinely don't believe that anybody that this person could be friends with would be that stupid. We're not fucking Nazis, and that's obvious. It should be very, very clear. But if, some people... there's no hope for them. In other words, never mind the facts. Look, you're the only one defending her other than a bunch of Nazis. Join with the good people. And that's exactly how it gets, right? When you get canceled, people don't know what's going on. It takes a long time to communicate with everybody. You feel overwhelmed. You're getting dogpiled. People are starting whisper campaigns about you. They're calling up people like you're at your job. They're emailing all your work contacts. And yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to combat, and it takes a long time. And the people on the sidelines who don't really know too much, and they just kind of know you a little bit, they're like, well, I don't really know what's going on. I better just kind of stand back because it sounds pretty insane. Sounds serious, right? Yeah, but also I have noticed that the left has a very serious problem. It's made up of people who say that cancel culture is not real or it's not effective. But then the overwhelming number of the people who say, oh, it is a problem. It's a problem. It's even a problem on the left. Even me, I'm on the left. It's a problem. Those people don't step forward either. You don't see them step forward and actually defend people when people are in the midst of these things. That is how mobs are built. Not any kind of movement capable of defeating fascism. My friend was not... Yeah, for real. What?
I read?
Oh, I'll just read the whole time. Yeah, you go. Yeah, you go.
Yeah, okay. My friend was not the instigator of this vile campaign, though I believe he has become caught up in its dangerous logic. The prime mover of witch hunt and source of most of the falsehoods, including the false reports of the trial outcome, was the defendant in the libel suit, Luke Turner, and it was Turner who opened this new round of the witch hunt, posting documents produced at the trial in order to bolster his false claims. Turner's prime evidence of Power's claimed Nazi sympathies consists of transcripts of conversations between Miller and Power on WhatsApp that were discussed in court. These charts were disclosed by Miller and Power to demonstrate that they were not colluding to harass Turner in 2018. Turner helpfully highlighted the juicy bits in yellow before uploading them to X/Twitter. It is impossible to read these transcripts without a deep sense of unease, a sense that just to read them is a gross violation of the privacy of the two people concerned. It is as if we are looking at revenge porn. Only those caught up in the logic of the witch hunt are convinced of their own righteousness, could be unaffected by a feeling of disgust about how these private conversations between two friends have been broadcast across the globe. The two friends had already, at the time these conversations took place, been ostracized and relentlessly slandered as Nazis, and had more need than most for the right to private conversation and private jokes with each other. What these transcripts actually reveal, however, is not at all what Turner thinks that they reveal.
Hello, beautiful listener. I see you. Just kidding. I can't. But I have to interrupt this just really quick to make my own advertisement, my very own, the one that says subscribing, liking, commenting. It actually makes a really big difference. So even if you're just on the free side, shout out to you. Thanks for doing it. Make sure to subscribe and all that. Especially people on the podcast, make sure to say something nice in the reviews. It actually really helps. And I need reviews on every platform, all right? Because I just hate to say it, it matters, you know? I try not to chase the almighty algorithm, but also I don't want to have all of this beautiful content go to waste. And so I'm trying to walk a fine line between quality and quantity. And I come out way heavier on the side of quality, as you can obviously see we do here. But come on, let's push that subscribe button, you know? Let's smash that like button, you know? Like teach the algorithm what you actually care about, all right? And then maybe it'll show it to other people. That's great. All right, let's get back to it. Turner's evidence of Miller's and Power's Nazi sympathies from these conversations, the trump card which supposedly constitutes their admission of such sympathies, assuming you disregard the joke they share about their persecution, oh my god, we're really Nazis now, is that they discuss their interest in reading Hitler's Mein Kampf. They even admit, can you believe it, to keeping their own copies of the book. Okay, and I just want to say is like a stupid amount of people really were stuck on the joke portion, which was, as he says, obviously a joke. But no, the bit about the Mein Kampf, let's read it here and like take turns reading it. I'll play Daniel Miller, you play Nina Power, right? So the Luke Turner tweet says, the disclosed WhatsApp reveals that Nina Power and Daniel Miller both kept copies of Hitler's... it cuts off. Hold on. There we go. Can you see that? Can you read that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I can read it.
So Luke Turner, the person who spent $1 million of his dad's money to try to bankrupt Miller and Power, says the disclosed WhatsApp reveal that Nina Power and Daniel Miller both kept copies of Hitler's Mein Kampf, with Mr. Miller suggesting they might find themselves agreeing with it. This leads Miss Power to wonder what the real deal is with the protocols of the Elders of Zion. Okay?
Should we just read the yellow parts?
Let's just read
We don't need to read this whole thing.
Well, I mean, it's not a lot.
I guess. Well, Nina starts with, okay, that's it. At the airport, reading the occult war and drinking coffee. Smiley face. Have a good evening, my aristocratic friend, XXX.
Luis is an excellent looking Ran. I don't know.
I know, it's kind of fuzzy.
Yeah. Heathcliff and I are wrangling NRX materialists into some kind of book for... Hold on. It really is too hard for me to make out what they're even saying here. Let me scroll over and see if this will work. Heathcliff and I are wrangling NRX material into some kind of a book format. And then, yeah.
Oh, you're here. Thought you were with our virile friend. Smiley face. Oh, cool.
He appears to be suffering challenges on multiple fronts.
Who, Viking?
Yes.
Oh no, what's happening?
I will tell you later.
Yes, of course. I think at some point we need to read Mein Kampf properly.
LOL.
Seriously, I want to understand it.
I keep a copy in my study, of course. Well,
Well,
sorry.
I have one too. I think maybe it is necessary.
We can consult. What if we find ourselves agreeing with it, though? Oh my god, he's right about everything.
What do you think of the occult war? Don't worry if no time now, obviously. Haha. Well, I think we are strong enough to see everything all the way around now.
Evola on the occult war.
And then it
So
ends.
so they were looking into the whole NRX thing. They were researching the right. Daniel Miller is some kind of right winger, but he's not. I mean, from what I understand, he's not a full blower. But he's definitely not a. He's part of this new right milieu. That's the thing, which means he cares about free speech. He cares about the left's excesses. He cares about gender and sex. He cares about the things that you're not supposed to care about. Who knows? Who knows what else? I've never communicated with him. I've not read up on his stuff yet. But yes, to be doing research on NRX material at the time would mean they're doing they're reading up on Guy Guinan. Yeah. I looked into Guy Guinan at some point because I was like, oh, who's this? You got to look these people up if you want to understand the current situation. Some people think they already have the current situation all figured out. At Theory Underground, we're all like, we don't know. And that's why we read the most essential different perspectives that you can read. I'll read 2 paragraphs, pass it over. The thought that someone might want to own and read Mein Kampf in order to understand the origins and ideology of Hitlerism without being fascists themselves doesn't seem to occur to those who have spread this evidence far and wide. This evidence betrays an anxiety on the part of the accusers in respect to forbidden thoughts. That by reading a book containing forbidden ideas, the reader runs the risk of being influenced by the book and might even end up agreeing with those forbidden thoughts. What a contemptible fear of thinking this demonstrates. Well, it's, there's a reason that it's coming from the people who, anyway. I'm going to actually scroll down to the footnote on this note about reading Mein Kampf because I know what it's about and it's really great. So, it's James P. Cannon lived his entire adult life under the banner of socialist revolution, from his youth to the first decade of the 20th century, as an organizer for the IWW, as a founding leader of the Communist Party in the United States, and later of the Socialist Workers' Party, up to his death in 1976 at the age of 86. During his trial and by the way, it's because this author, this Rob guy, the title of his blog is Worker at Large, and he's like a labor organizer guy, and so that's why he knows this kind of factoid. During his trial in 1941 for opposing the U.S. entry into the Second World War, Cannon stated under oath that he was familiar with the contents of Mein Kampf, which he called the most important piece of literature against Marxism. The idea that this constituted evidence that Cannon was a Nazi sympathizer would have been laughed out of court, and not even the prosecutors in the case dared to make such a claim.
Of course it might happen, just as with any book, that the reader ends up being influenced by or agreeing with the book. And if that happens with Mein Kampf, it indicates that perhaps the reader's anti-fascist convictions were a little more fragile than they thought. Fear of being attracted to heresy fuels every witch hunt. It can only be assuaged by turning away from the devil, returning to the comforting common faith, and denouncing the heretics. The court case itself had the same character as the tweets, resting heavily on guilt by association, dark hints of secret friendships between Miller and Power and anti-Semites, and secretly held anti-Semitic opinions. Turner's lawyers labored long and hard to concoct an anti-Semitic harassment campaign out of Miller's and Power's attempts to discuss their plight with other artists similarly defamed by Turner. Hour after hour, Turner's lawyers cross-examined Miller and Power for their opinions of this or that image of artwork, mostly produced by people who were only tangentially connected to the exchanges between Miller and Turner, trying to trap them into admitting that they recommended this or that piece of anti-Semitic art or literature. Here is an example of this line of questioning and Miller's response. I'll read this whole thing. Turner's lawyer. And also what one discerns from the WhatsApp messages that we have got, which, as I have said several times, are the only evidence of contemporary communications that you have revealed, was that you were recommending writings by explicitly anti-Semitic individuals to Miss Power on several occasions, which I suggest does not sit with someone claiming damages for libel for an allegation of anti-Semitism. To which Miller responded, "It is simply not true that I was recommending anti-Semitic literature. Nina and I were discussing the ideas of the right in general, and we were discussing also anti-Semitic literature. I don't recommend any anti-Semitic literature to Nina. We simply discuss it. Now, it is the position of the Antifa, anti-fascist, that discussing something, if they don't like what you're discussing, equates to endorsing it. Now, this is a position that in fact leads directly to the end of critical discussion altogether, because it means that you cannot discuss extremist ideas, for example. You must simply somehow ban them without even discussing them, without even attempting to understand them. And I must say, this is a very problematic position for a liberal society to tolerate. And I think we cannot tolerate it, actually. I think that we have to defend discussion, and that means also discussion of material that we don't like. And I never endorsed that material. I never recommended that material. Based.
Earlier, Miller had described an anti-fascist demonstration outside an art gallery called LD50 and what happened when he held a one-person counter-demonstration in defense of the gallery. Turner's lawyer says, "You held up a placard. Shortly, if you can, why is it important to defend the right to openly discuss ideas?" Right, so the placard is the one showing in the thumbnail of this article. It's the one that says the right to openly discuss ideas must be defended. And then the person standing next to him is like calling him a fascist for that. And, yeah. Miller says the placard actually had two sides. On the first side was the right to openly discuss ideas must be defended. And on the other side, it said stand up to violence and intimidation. I believe that we must defend the right to discuss ideas because if we are not discussing ideas, we can't understand ideas. If we can't understand ideas, then we can't really understand anything because the world is organized through ideas. So when an organized activist group states that a gallery is not permitted to discuss certain ideas, then the question is, what is the authority upon which they are operating? They have no legal authority. They are a group of anonymous activists that are exclusively threatening violence because they are saying that they do not allow these ideas to be discussed because they have determined that it is impermissible. Now, I don't believe that any activist group from left... Oh, the image is right down here below. I could have just shown it. Now, I don't believe that any activist group from either the left or the right has any authority to make that kind of judgment. I think that if you are operating as an anonymous network of mass activists and you are intimidating gallerists and bookstores, as subsequently became the case, this is a very disturbing development. I thought it was necessary to stand up specifically also to this activist network. I don't think they have the right to suppress discussion this way. If we don't have discussion, and I said this at the gallery, then what we have is violence. What we have is competing forms of violence. This is what we must avoid, actually. I believe as a society, we have to keep discussing it, not fighting. This is not just like a liberal position. This is not just a conservative position. This is also historically a radical position, right? Some people will try to reduce it to just liberal rights theory. Yeah, first of all, whenever people are quick to throw that one out, I tend to kind of back away and, try to act natural and head for the nearest exit. But also, this is very Levinasian. The image, and do you want to describe it and then take it away?
Yeah, so the caption is Daniel Miller's one-person counter-demonstration challenges the anti-Nazi gathering outside the LD50 Art Gallery. And it's a picture of Daniel holding a sign that says the right to openly discuss ideas must be defended, pictured right next to a woman holding a sign that says, "Fuck off, Nazi scum." Anyway, you scroll down a little bit more, please. So the conversation between Miller and Turner's lawyer continues. Conversation. It's court. That's not what it's called, but Miller's back
the proceedings.
Here. The questioning, the proceedings. LOL. The so-called Antifa movement explicitly claims that the right to use violence against people that they designate as fascists. So when they call someone a fascist, they are saying, you can physically attack this person. At LD50 itself, I was physically assaulted. My sign was ripped from my hands. I thought this was somehow quite a symbolic moment. Subsequent to that, I was very systematically targeted on social media by the activists who had been responsible for organizing the protest against LD50. From their point of view, it was essential that they defamed me as a fascist because the actually moderate liberal position that I was presenting was threatening to them. They also wanted to make an example of me because they didn't want anybody else to stand up against them, so their position is essentially violence. They do not have an interest in discussing ideas. They want to silence anybody who opposes them, and they mobilize rhetoric and language in order to do that. And I would say that is in itself a very violent use of language. Turner's lawyer asks, so words and rhetoric, is that your answer? Do I understand it correctly? Words and rhetoric can equate to violence? Miller said, if you are a part of an activist group that explicitly says that violence is permissible or even encouraged against certain designated groups of people, then the use of language obviously has a violent function. It is clear that words can exchange violence, that's for sure. I think that the logic of scapegoating in general is a perennial logic, and it has been applied to many different kinds of individuals and groups throughout history, including, of course, the Jews. Before that, witches in 16th century Europe. If you can call somebody a witch, it was not really your opinion that they were engaging in witchcraft. It was direct call to burn them, actually. And I think that the word fascist today has a very similar connotation.
That is a really powerful line. And I know that I've seen leftists try to make fun of people like Tim Pool or Andy Ngo for saying that kind of thing. But no, if you don't take this seriously and you actually perpetuate this kind of behavior, then, mercy upon your soul. And in a sort of sense, you're putting yourself out there saying, you're saying like, hey, I'm not willing to have conversations. It's just going to be a fight. And it's like, okay, I mean, you think you'll win that one? I guess that's your opinion or whatever, but like, good luck. Personally, I don't imagine that the leftist insurrectionists are ever going to really win with that attitude, because most people are sensible enough to go, yeah, force should only be used to return things to, I don't want to say calm, but like, to calm shit down, like to stop the chaos. And so people who create chaos and incite violence, coming from the left, it's like you're empowering the right. And if you don't see how that empowers your enemy, okay. But yeah, calling someone a witch was like you wanted them to die, right? Like that's what that means. Like you're putting a target on them. You're expecting someone might go do vigilante justice against them. And so when people are over here on Twitter saying that Theory Underground is esoteric Hitlerists because we supported Nina, or if you're like Matt Calhoun of the Acid Horizon Bros, back when Daniel first, showed this cover on Twitter and everybody lost their minds or whatever, Calhoun was like calling us what, neo-Nazis? Was that what it was? But the point is like, no, you're saying, and they blocked me on Twitter before saying any of this stuff, right? What you're saying is not only is this person off limits for communicating with because they're so bad, but violence is justified against them. And I mean, we've got our, kind of borderline schizo, stalker type people. We do. We don't have as many as Nina does, but we do, which means that, yeah, when we're out there touring and stuff like that, yeah, the possibilities always there. And so it's like when people are doing this thing that Miller is pointing out, that Turner's cohort of little internet people that participate in, no, like you don't throw fascist around lightly. You don't throw Nazi around lightly. It is like the one thing that makes it like, oh, it's okay to beat the shit out of that person. It's okay to throw a brick at that person. Oh, it's okay to shoot that person. Okay. That, of course, I think it's losing its power. And that's the other reason you're not supposed to throw it around so cheaply. It's losing its power. Anne has said a lot about this in the past, I think.
Yeah, it's like the still like progressive liberal part of me is like, okay, no, but when you just call everything racism, transphobia, sexism, white supremacy, like ... then actual instances where it happens, which it happens way less than these people are throwing out these words, but it's like, well, a lot of that still exists. No one takes you seriously now. It's the boy who cried wolf problem. You go, oh, look, it's a Nazi. And then we go, that's not actually a Nazi. Oh, look, there's a Nazi. That's not actually a Nazi. And then one day, there's, I don't know, like a guy with Nazi tattoos, which I've like seen in public in Idaho, like in the United States, you can do that. Like it's real. They go, oh no, look, this guy's being a Nazi. And we're like, yeah, we don't believe you anymore. So there is kind of that effect where it's like you're just muddying the water now. Like I don't take anything that you say seriously, which then empowers like the right to actually be more vitriolic, to be more transphobic, to get away with edgier, like I would argue crueler statements and thoughts, because now we know that by calling them XYZ transphobic, whatever, no one's actually going to take that accusation seriously. So they can get away with saying, like, I hear some of the things that some of these right-wing talking heads say, figureheads, talking people say, and it's like, oh, that's like actually a little bit mean. Oh, that's actually like a little homophobic. But everything is homophobic. Everything is transphobic. That is not 100% aligned with the ideological, dogmatic lines of the woke, liberal left, righteous, moral gods, almighty to them. So it's like, when everything's gonna be bad to you, of course.
And there's also just like how there's nothing more grating on people who have serious responsibilities, that working people especially, being spoken down to or scolded by people who haven't ever worked a serious job and are brainwashed by their schooling system and who are just PMC ascendant wannabes, filling the ranks overstuffing the ranks of all changemaker organizations. And in 2016, the Bernie movement was largely staffed by working class people, and it really quickly capitulated because of its success. It got kind of taken over by these kinds of people, these sort of Vosh and Hassan minion type of characters, these little miniature thought slime or Noah Samson type of characters. And the thing is like, yeah, that's all fine if they really were just like, oh, it's just kids, let them be kids, whatever. But no, it's like they're getting in the way of healthcare. Medicare for all was something 80% of the country was all about, up until people started saying, well, if you don't let the school take your child and like put your child on hormone blockers, well, then you're a transphobe and you must just actually hate trans people and you actually are a Nazi and you actually shouldn't deserve to have a job. And of course, anything we do to a person who has your position is justified, right? Like that started in basically 2016. And I mean, that's when it really started taking off. And it was part of how the first robust seeming, like real resurgence of working class organizing in the United States, not just in our lifetime, but in like the last 100 years, was thwarted, right? Well, since that time, there's been a lot of other things that the left, these student activists, signing off on actually undermines, right? Like, so if they want everyone to have Medicare for all, then people are like, fuck it, I don't even want it anymore, right? It's because they don't want to touch anything that these people are advocating for with a 10-foot pole, because you'll lose friends over it. No one can take you seriously anymore. Well, in the same way, it's really too bad that the pro-Palestine movement got hijacked by these people. I mean, in a sort of sense, if they ever could have, if social change can work and if activism can do anything in the United States, the worst thing that happened for Palestinians was these kinds of crying wolf losers taking over the movement to free Palestine, right? Because they exaggerate so much. Anyway, all right. So yeah, at the end of that last quote, which was Miller's, where he said, if you call somebody a witch, it was not really your opinion that they were engaging in witchcraft. It was direct call to burn them actually. And I think that the word fascist today has a very similar connotation. Now, the author says, this is the heart of the matter, the source and motivation of the witch hunt.
The judge's whiff of anti-Semitism comment seems to be based on some of the images and terms used by Miller in the course of the Twitter flaming war. At one point, he called Turner a homunculus. I had to look this up in the dictionary. It means small man, and describes him as spineless. Turner's lawyer suggests that these constitute examples of the dehumanizing stereotype of Jews used by anti-Semites.
Homunculus is... Oh, sorry, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, well, let me finish this paragraph first. Turner's lawyer, I read that. Another anti-Semitic trope of imagery, according to this lawyer, day 2, page 95, is raised fists, also a common feature of stereotyping a Jewish Bolshevik. This idea that like minorities think that them being a minority makes them a good person, and if you call them a bad person based on their character, because their identity is so wrapped up in that like characteristic, that identity category, they take an insult to their character as an attack on their identity. If you are transgender and also a bad person, and then we say you're a spineless piece of shit, I'm not saying that because of your gender identity, or I'm not saying that because, like in this case, he's not calling him spineless because, oh, you're a weak little Jew. No, it's like You're a spineless piece of shit of a human being. It transcends your identity, goes deep into your soul, and your soul is garbage. Thumbs down. 0 out of 10. Would not recommend.
Yeah.
What are we looking at?
That's homunculus.
Homunculus.
Yeah, it's art, I guess.
So get that off of here. There's a penis. We're gonna get censored.
No, look, it was flaccid though. And so here's the thing. Nobody should be over the age of 18 at Theory Underground, and my stats say nobody's under the age of 27 except for like 1%. So we're okay. We're okay. Listen though. The homunculus has a giant head and giant hands and a giant dick, and the feet are pretty big too. And everything else is very small, and it's like the original cartoon character in a sort of sense because it's got such exaggerated features. And the point is the features that are exaggerated are those features that actually orient human life, at least male in that case. But yes.
Okay, back to the article. And there's an image of the Third International by Diego Rivera, many raised fists, and even the depiction of an actual Jewish Bolshevik, but no anti-Semitic tropes. Are we seriously to believe that an image of a person with raised fists constitutes an anti-Semitic stereotype? It's quite a stretch, to put it mildly. I'd call it clutching at straws. Yet these terms and images are, apparently, the sole basis for the judge's whiff of anti-Semitism remark in her judgment. Both Miller and Power agreed that Luke Turner was subjected to criticism for his art project, which included grossly anti-Semitic insults and imagery from some quarters. They just deny that anything anti-Semitic came from themselves. Miller is himself Jewish. It's been a long day.
Yeah,
hold that against me.
And worked a 10-hour shift at Amazon. Not something that Luke Turner would know anything about because he's never worked a real job in his life because he's got a rich daddy. And we're not saying his daddy's rich because he's Jewish. We're just saying he's rich, okay?
Fact,
anyway.
Period.
At times, this pursuit of non-existent anti-Semitism took truly surreal forms. At one point, Turner's lawyers tried to detect anti-Semitism in some of Miller's tweets, the content of which is unknown because they have been deleted. The lawyer attempts to deduce the anti-Semitism in these non-existent messages from the responses of others in the conversation which have not been deleted. This is from day 1, pages 40 through 50. It is astonishing that the judge permitted this line of questioning to proceed without objecting. This is evidence of an even lower order than hearsay evidence, noting nothing but guesswork and speculation. To be more precise, nothing but guilt by association and the dark suggestion that Miller had something to hide by deleting the tweets. It is an indication of how deeply politicized the judicial hearing itself became. Miller pointed out, I have repeatedly stated my actual convictions with respect to the points that the defendant has accused me of. All of these statements are simply ignored. In the case that you present, for example, you have simply ignored all of the articles that I have written. You have not cited one article that I have written. I have published more than 100 articles in this period, I would say, dealing with various subjects, also defending myself from accusations that have been made by the defendant and his associates, and you have simply ignored them because they undermine your case. That's from day 2, page 103. The entire cross-examination of Miller and Power was directed towards ferreting out confessions of their presumed secret sympathies, conspiracies, political views, and friendships. Because in the light of day, under the glare of the freely available evidence of their writings and publicly expressed opinions, these foul insinuations turn to dust.
Parts of the trial, in other words, became an extension of the witch hunt. It was not unlike the way Alger Hiss's efforts to clear his name legally became the basis for the perjury charges under which he was eventually jailed. On the other hand, it was established in the trial that Turner had falsely claimed that Miller had published an article entitled "Toward a Hitlerian Disability Politics," in which he advocated the killing of disabled people. This malicious lie was circulated in an effort to get Miller deplatformed from speaking engagements. If that does not meet the threshold for libel, I don't know what ever would. It was a deliberate fabrication, motivated by malice, actively spread, and it had serious consequences for the person slandered. Power and Miller themselves speak at the trial about their efforts to understand what motivated Luke Turner's witch hunt. They constantly asked themselves, what is going on? They described their efforts to contact other artists who had been similarly targeted by Turner in the past. They look mostly for psychological explanations and speculate that Turner is suffering from paranoid delusions. That may be true. I'm not in a position to judge the truth of otherwise of that claim. But the psychosis evident in this campaign is primarily social rather than individual in its origins and character. A witch hunt is led and directed by individuals, but at the heart it is a convulsive social emotion that operates in a certain social milieu.
The politics of capitalist liberal leftism has a particular social base and material roots. Its social base is the professional middle class, centered in the state itself, especially its educational and juridical institutions, as well as in the broader technical communications and news media bureaucracies, both state and private. This sector of the middle class is sufficiently remote from the process of economic production that its political thinking is not dictated by the drive for profit, which conditions the thinking of the capitalist class itself as well as middle class producers like farmers. Nor is it thinking governed by the necessity of the working class to defend its wages and entitlements and the social cohesion which is the only source of strength of the working class. The professional middle class enjoys a certain freedom from economic insecurity and leisure to consider social problems and formulate solutions in the name of the common interest of all. It considers itself, by virtue of its middle position, uniquely qualified to speak on behalf of all and to preach moderation and reconciliation between the classes. This is a homie right here. He gets it. One thing is like the PMC is, especially in the last 10 years, but overall, thanks to neoliberalism, suffering and stressed and high pressure, pushing them down into the regular working class and other kinds of precarious positions. But that doesn't change the fact that all of their operating assumptions and theory was produced by people who had active leisure time, which is to say relative time energy, which is, time energy is large, energy-infused, repeatable blocks of time reliably between us throughout the week. Most people don't have that. Even PMC people really don't have that. But yeah, ultimately, however, its privileges depend on the continued stability of capitalism. Thus, its leftism has strict limits. Right, so the rump professionals, the ones who are established, do have a vested stake in the maintenance of the existing situation. All right, actually, Anne keeps yawning, and I'm going to go to sleep, so just kidding. We're going to get some cookies. We're going to take a...
Gonna get a sugar rush. Yeah,
we're going to pause.
Sorry, audience.
We're going to do some jumping jacks. We'll be right back. No, she just works a 10-hour day. Everybody give it up for Anne.
Amazing. All over here, yawning on stream.
I like to give him shit for that, yeah. Maybe eventually he'll learn. He calls other people all kinds of names, but, I mean, that one right there is like, it's kind of like leaving your fly down, But,
yeah.
All right, we'll be right back.
Cookie break.
We're back. Energized.
Boom. Sugared up, more like.
Sugared up. We played with the cats. They're hyper. They're playing. It's great. It's very cute. Okay, so where were we? We're going to keep reading until we fall asleep. So the last section was about the PMC and its sort of biases when it comes to this sort of stuff. I'll read this paragraph and then hand it over. The last 3 decades have witnessed one of the most profound shifts in the history of world capitalism. the decline of manufacturing in North America and UK/Europe, and in pursuit of lower labor costs, the shift of the center of capitalist industry to Asia, China above all, but also Taiwan, Korea, India, and others. The last time a comparable shift took place was a century earlier, when the period of Britain's industrial supremacy ended and the United States emerged as the dominant world power after defeating challenges from Germany and Japan by force of arms. So yes, the times are crazy. And also the image here is of the U.S. landing at Okinawa, April 1945, which involved 1,500 vessels. The United States only enlarged as the world's dominant power after defeating Germany and Japan by force of arms. Now a similar shift in favor of China has begun, but is not yet completed.
Okay. The first political effect of this shift, paradoxically, was the political rise of the liberal middle class. The outsourcing of manufacturing to China marked a dramatic weakening of the capitalist class in Europe and North America. Economically, they became increasingly parasitic, drawing their profits from wealth sucked out of China through the financial mechanisms and patterns of unequal trade established during their period of industrial dominance. This weakening was also manifested in their waning military power. They were unable to impose Pax Americana on Iraq, Syria, nor even Afghanistan, one of the most impoverished countries in the world. The politics of bourgeois conservatism, combined with aggressive militarism, which had been the dominant current in bourgeois politics for most of the preceding century, became correspondingly enfeebled. But the decline of industry in the old industrial powerhouses also robbed the working class in those countries of a large measure of its economic strength and its self-confidence. Working class organization and politics also slumped for a prolonged period. With the blessing of the capitalist class, the professional middle class stepped forward to take the reins of state. In the US, this layer even christened themselves the liberal meritocracy. Yes, they truly believe that their privileges are due to their own individual merits. Their supremacy is best exemplified by the presidency of Barack Obama in the US and the governments of Nicola Sturgeon in Scotland, Justin Trudeau in Canada, and Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand. But they are also firmly entrenched in the unelected bureaucracy of state, regardless of the political party in power. They dominate the news media, social media, sporting and cultural institutions, public and private. At least in the UK and New Zealand, liberals even lead the police, something I never expected to see. And there's a picture of Obama saying presidency of Barack Obama best exemplified the rule of the liberal meritocracy. Your turn?
The minority liberalism of the last century had allied itself with the defense of democratic rights, chiefly the freedoms of speech, of association, and of assembly, and protections for those accused of crimes. Rights needed by the working class to organize and fight for its class interests. But liberalism transformed into the dominant current of bourgeois thought. Liberalism at the helm of state has proved itself every bit as hostile to these freedoms as its conservative predecessors. The defense of liberal orthodoxy increasingly involved zealous suppression of heretical ideas beyond the liberal canon, and unwillingness to engage in debate. No to hate speech, no platform for fascists were inscribed on their banner, and for the more daring among them, punch a fascist. Censorship and self-censorship became the norm. Liberals who continued to defend freedom of speech found themselves, to their great surprise and dismay, lumped together with rightists and fascists. Furthermore, the shift to China gave capitalism a breathing space of a few decades, but no more than that. The crisis of falling rate of profit proceeds apace, and with it, the continued weakening of the capitalist class. Oh, this is base. He's falling rate of profit pilled. You only need to glance at the current U.S. presidential election campaign for a glimpse of the advanced decrepitude of that class and all its parties. War between the imperialist giants, almost unthinkable since 1945, is once again in the air. The average rate of profit is now so low that capitalists are unable to maintain even such basic infrastructure as they need to keep the wheels of commerce turning, such as roads and water supplies. Still less can they maintain luxuries such as legions of unproductive professionals. A great number of the middle class find themselves on the brink of being hurled down into the ranks of the propertyless class. Some will be ruined economically, others morally. Universities and other institutions of state are hemorrhaging worldwide, gripped by ideological and financial crises and shedding staff.
Even tighter adherence to the liberal orthodoxy thus becomes a de facto condition of employment for thousands. By the same token, careers can be built on race baiting and denouncing rivals. The hunger for scapegoats grows. Anti-Semitism, oh, the quintessence
Yeah.
of scapegoating spreads and becomes more violent. Moods of panic spread among the professional middle class, tipping over into outright hysteria on occasion. This is the environment which nurtures witch hunts. Luke Turner set out to defend the middle ground in politics and oppose polarization and extremism. His art installation called "He Will Not Divide Us" was described by his lawyer as intended to send a fight-back message against polarization and division in society. Day 1, page 16 of the court documents. The hysterical reaction of many liberals to the election of Donald Trump, which a friend of mine calls Trump derangement syndrome, was one of the seeds of this witch hunt. For his part, Daniel Miller also told the court, "I am highly opposed to all forms of ideological fanaticism or extremism. I think that they are in all cases, whether on the left or on the right, fundamentally similar. They are psychopathological." This is from day 2, pages 119 and 20. But to defend the middle ground at precisely the moment when the material basis for middle politics is being stripped away, when capitalist society and the middle class itself is becoming more polarized between extremes of wealth and poverty than any other time since the end of World War II, is an impossible quest. It can only lead to outcomes unexpected by those who make the attempt. The middle class, because of its middle position, can have no independent role in politics. Sooner or later it is forced to align itself with one or other of the big warring classes, with capitalist property or with the propertyless class, the socialist revolution or with fascist counter-revolution.
This witch hunt is itself a microcosm of that process. Two individuals, oh my god, the footnotes are right here, so we're basically almost done. We thought that we had like another 45 minutes. This witch hunt is itself a microcosm of that process. Two individuals who sought to defend the middle ground have ended up at opposite poles, defending opposing class interests. Becoming the target of a witch hunt such as this, having to defend your person and your integrity against an onslaught of accusation, irrationality, and hysteria, is a bewildering and terrifying ordeal. Nina Power has said that, while she is bankrupted and unemployed, I'm not ruined. I have my faith, my friends, I have somewhere to live and food to eat, clothes to wear, and I still have my books. Daniel Miller adds, "Now we're both bankrupt, but bankruptcy isn't an inappropriate or even especially bad state for philosophers. Nobody broke our spirits, and no one ever will." This is the most important outcome. The working class, as it awakens from its prolonged spell of bitter resignation and begins to fight once more, will pay close attention to those who have the presence of mind and the moral courage to think under these colossal class pressures when so many others are losing their heads.
Based. Like, it started off, just this article like very thoroughly and very well, like trying to understand more or less Twitter drama and accusations, and then it got deeper into like this witch hunt and comparisons, and then the next thing you know, we're doing PMC analysis on the historical material conditions that led up to this kind of stuff, and it's like, well, okay, that's epic. That's like a um, really good perspective and addition to the whole conversation, not just about Nina or Daniel, but just about this, witch hunt culture, cancel culture, cry bully culture in general. And I didn't realize that Turner in his art piece, which was like, no, we need to fight polarization. It's like, this is what the liberals do. Like, I'm seeing it with people in my own life. I guess I've talked about it in public before, but it's like, they go, oh yeah, we're so polarized. We need to fight polarization. But also, why are all working class people so racist? It's like, no, but you're like you're literally doing it right now. Like, how can you not see this contradiction? That's an interesting one that I'd love to understand more, where that comes from, of like these liberals, these moralizing liberals going, oh, we're so polarized, we just need to stop, but then playing right along in the game. It's like, do you realize what you're doing and what you're saying?
It's like
Do you have any self-awareness?
It's like Destiny saying, "Oh well, that firefighter who was at the Trump rally deserved to die for being there because, well, Trump's been the most antagonistic and divisive president in the history of the country, and the Republicans are so bad." And it's like, oh, okay, so you're you're broken. You're broken. Like these 4 years broke you. You're saying, well, anything's justified then. Okay, cool, man. I mean, all right.
Yeah.
Okay. Dude, Democrats on the internet are not the same as Democrats in my loving, sweet life. My loving, sweet life is full of wonderful people. And there's lots of wonderful people on both sides. I know many of them. They're great people. Lots of great people, wonderful people, the best people. I've got lots of wonderful, great people in my life. But when it comes to the people on the internet, man, it's just it takes all of everyone's worst everything and concentrates it and creates shitstorms. And I like how, I don't know that I fully agree with Rob's position on the historical conditions and kind of saying that this is like they both try to take the middle ground and they both end up on opposite sides of these two classes. I don't know that class analysis really gets to what I don't know that it's the full story or even the most important part of the story here. What I see is two human beings standing up and saying, this is wrong. This goes against my values. And it's not going to work out well for any of us if we incite violence instead of, actually talking things through. Now, I do think that there might be something about, are we even able to have discussions? What are spaces where we could have real discussions? I don't think that art exhibits are necessarily the places where real discussion happens. But knowing Nina and Pierre and the stuff that they're doing in London, they have moved away from just doing art exhibits and are actually fostering the conditions for real intellectual events. And I think that that's a big first step. And yeah, I don't know. Theory Underground's obviously all about not just let's talk to talk. We're not like the Dave Rubin, let's just bring on people and just hear their opinions as long as they're not left. No, it's kind of like the place where the only remaining people who were left that have principles gather together to try to understand why the situation is so fucked. And it's not just leftists. There's a bunch of people here who aren't leftists, and we've been very adamant about that. So people will still say that, well, she might not even be a Nazi, but Nina's part of the right. And as she said, there's no left or right. There are people who are trying to make it so you cannot talk or think, and there are people who are trying their best and hardest to find those spaces and people who have the courage to think under these colossal class pressures when so many others are losing their heads.
Yeah. So looking forward to talking to Nina. I'm sure we're not just going to talk about this. I'm sure she's quite sick of talking about all of this. We've talked to her about this in private messages. They'll probably get shared in a court case someday. No, just kidding. But it's going to be a great conversation, I'm sure.
Oh my God. I would have so much fun with these kinds of people trying to like go through my DMs. That would be the funniest thing ever. And I've also kind of just for a long time assumed, you know what? It's always possible. Eventually I'll get hacked. So I've made sure to hide all my real Nazi paraphernalia in the safe house. No, guys, the only Nazi is the one that's inside of your head. All right.
Ooh.
With that.
Also, people don't have the time and energy to be living like secret Nazi lives on the internet. Like, if they're not acting like a Nazi 90% of the time, they don't got the time and energy to be secretly being a Nazi. Nazis go to the gas station and buy beer. I've seen it. I've literally seen it. I've gone, oh, that's like legit Nazi tattoos on this guy. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I got in a fight with somebody with a swastika, and the thing is like tattooed on him, and it's just like, it wasn't a fight over that. He was just like a deranged lunatic, and I actually got, my elbow is still messed up. I have loose cartilage in my elbow from that fight. The fact is that the Nazis who get together in Idaho are like, there's like 6 or 12 of them. It's like, and then the counter protest is like 100 people strong. And so it's just like, shut the fuck up. That is the most fringe lunatic internet shit. But as soon as you start saying people can't read Evola, people can't read Schmidt or Spangler or whatever, just guys, way to supercharge it. Way to supercharge it with curiosity for people who were never going to be normies anyway, right? And so it's like, what has happened is that the hall monitors and the socialites and the people who are always going to be the kind of dumb average leaders in any given community have tried to center the people who are always going to be the fringes. And in doing so, they turn the whole thing into a joke. And also the fringes relocate. That's the thing. They've relocated. They're moving away. And part of moving away is, hey, let's try to understand the situation, which requires reading everything, not just one list of books that was put out by the DSA or whatever. Okay. With that, we love you all, and enjoy the rest of the stream today. Thanks, Anne. I'm so glad you got to. I'm glad you got to appear on stream, even though maybe not in the actual day, but you'll be camping, right? While this is going on.
So yeah, we're gonna interview Nina, and then I'm gonna go have just a quick 24 hours of nature bath, some solitude. I need it. I've been needing it, and every time I'm like, I'm gonna go camping, it just never happens. So I'm actually gonna do it. Just up the panhandle.
I did that recently, and it was just so good. So I was like, Anne, you have to go do it. All right, everybody.
Peace. Cool. See ya on the flippity flop.
I normally just rule the PSA, but I have to say really quick, I know most of you guys don't finish the PSA. I've seen it. I see the numbers drop off. I know how many of you just quit the moment something's over. You're instantly on to the next thing, like you're a crack addict. You're like, oh my God, I just have to go to, and I get it. It's like an advertisement. There's like way more interesting things to go click on too. But it's not an advertisement. It's the Theory Underground articulation of itself. But more importantly, what I'm about to show you is updated. It's not the same old, same old. It has the same old beginning of all the other iterations of the Theory Underground end of stream or end of video or end of podcast PSA. But it's got new information. And in fact, there's a bunch of people who think that they're keeping up with Theory Underground who keep asking me questions that are answered in the new information that was added to this PSA. So don't be that person. Keep up to date. Finish the video. Check out this PSA. And thank you. Enjoy.
We cannot do direct revolution, but the only way to lay the foundation for it is to do what you are doing to move the underground. It's a theoretically correct title.
Welcome to Theory Underground, a place for workers with earbuds who are tired of letting others read and think on their behalf, slipstreaming our way into an understanding of the situation that short-circuits the deadlocks of our moment.
Research at Theory Underground focuses on what is most important for understanding our current situation: theory of the subject, capital, time-energy theory, critical media theory, CMT, and the most essential critiques necessary for understanding why the theory, ideology, and common sense of influencers left to right misses the mark.
Theory Underground is coming to a city near you. What that has meant in the last year is traveling across the United States, into Canada, and then all over Europe to promote our books, courses, and ideas related to time energy and underground theory. You've been reading Underground Theory.
I'm a publisher and an editor. I run and review books. Literally, it's my living. This is the best edited collection I've ever read.
Okay, picture this scene. America, early 2021. An Amazon warehouse worker arises from the emerging underground theory internet scene to create spaces for untimely topics and concerns that are too often neglected or kept in isolation today. Joined by a revolving cast of underground theorists, academics, and critics, he establishes what will become Theory Underground, a teaching, research, and publishing platform by and for working-class intellectuals, autodidacts, and academics who want to do more than they're able to do within the confines of academia. That warehouse worker's name is David McKerracher, and his book Time Energy is his first major contribution to the world of theory. It was recently reprinted with a foreword by none other than Slavoj Žižek, who also contributed to Theory Underground's latest book.
My Bible, it's an excellent book.
A collection of essays called Underground Theory.
What you just heard is an excerpt from the Strange Exiles podcast, episode 23, where Bram from Strange Exiles interviewed me and Mikey. For those who don't know, Mikey is the author of the Dangerous Maybe blog. We are publishing one of his books here shortly at Theory Underground. He's also a lecturer at Theory Underground, and he's someone I've been friends and a collaborator with for over 10 years. But most importantly for you all, he's a fantastic lecturer, and it's a crime that he has to do wage labor right now. One of the long-term goals of Theory Underground has been now for a couple of years to hashtag free Mikey. That is something that I've been really pushing, but first I had to get freed from wage labor, which was achieved this year. That's right. Thanks to my monthly seminar subscribers, I was able to quit Amazon and do Theory Underground full time. Now I'm announcing the next big phase of the plan, which is the Mikey Down seminar. What monthly subscribers to the Mikey seminar are paying for is a survey of philosophy, including deep dives into Žižek, Land, Lacan, Baudrillard, Bataille, Lyotard, and ultimately the whole history of philosophy.
We're trying to build like this ongoing seminar, right? And that's what I really like about this thing, where, you know, if I'm teaching a main text, that's something I got to focus on. I got to really, but the seminar thing, we can do this stuff all the time where we dive deeper into concepts, we dive deeper into certain, you know, sections of books or whatever, and we can really do this nuanced stuff.
I think that there's probably no better way for us to accelerate our learning in these areas than by slipstreaming Mikey. And that has been my belief for years and years and years now. It's official. You're able to help out. You're able to get involved. You're able to benefit directly from liberating him from wage labor. Get on it right now. Do it. Just go. Stop what you're doing. Go click the button, subscribe. This is what you do. Subscribe to him. If you're already signed up for the ongoing Theory Underground seminars, then that's the ones that I do with my wife, Anne. Though that's getting an upgrade, which means that I will be doing one session per month that is just me, and then I will also be doing the ones with Anne, which are a crash course in sociology, anthropology, the social sciences, and ultimately Marx, Heidegger, Levinas, Bourdieu, imminently critiquing pop psychology, sociology, self-help, and ultimately the doxa of our time. But if you would like to be a subscriber to both Mikey's seminar and the seminar that the Snellgrove McKerrachers are doing, then the best way is to become a Tier 4 subscriber, or you can be a Tier 2 subscriber to each of us. The reason this matters is because Tier 2 is like pretty much the best bang for your buck. It gives you huge discounts on all of the courses that we do. But if you can't afford it, Tier 4 is amazing because it gives you Tier 3 access at both Mikey's seminar and ours.
And finally, not everybody has time to be part of these ongoing research seminars, and they just want to fund the paid content for the YouTube and podcast. And so thank you so much to our patrons over at Patreon. They're the ones funding all the free stuff. So big thank you to Bert, Marilyn, Carl, Sahil, Zozandra, Nikolai, Darian, Tyler, and Mandeep, and all the other wonderful patron people, Patreon people. And thank you to all the other wonderful Patreon people. Thank you so much to all of you patrons, and also to the special subscribers and the paying subscribers. Oh my god, it's just so awkward. Thank you, Patreon. Patrons, thank you. Oh, okay. And to all the other wonderful patrons, thank you so much, all you patrons. And also a special thanks to the subscribers on the YouTube side, as well as the paying subscribers over at Substack. Why can't we do this? Fuck. You guys,
Please.
just thank you. Thank you, everyone, for making this bullshit possible. Thank you to the subscribers. You do it. You did so good. Thanks, guys.